Hey guys, it's Jerry Norton here, and if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know that on my videos I like to give really good, actionable, step-by-step techniques and tips and instructions for how to make money wholesaling and flipping houses. Well, I recently did an interview with Brian Ellwood for his podcast, 12 Houses to Freedom. And on that interview, we had a really candid conversation. I share how I went from dead broke at age 27 to millionaire by the age of 30, and some really good nuggets on what I've learned in the process, how to set up your business, how to really focus on making money in real estate and what worked for me. And I really want you to watch this interview. It was really great to have this conversation with Brian. All right, let's cut to the interview.
What's up, guys? Brian Ellwood. Welcome back to 12 Houses to Freedom. I hope you guys are doing awesome today. I'm really excited. I've got an amazing guest on the show today, a guy I've been following for quite some time, Mr. Jerry Norton of Flipping Mastery. In 2004, Jerry went from digging holes in construction for minimum wage in his mid-20s to becoming a self-made millionaire by the age of 30. He specializes in wholesaling and fix and flipping houses, as well as building multi-million-dollar new construction homes and developments. Just in the past few years, Jerry has flipped hundreds of properties all across the U.S. Aside from doing deals, he loves all things real estate. He's a licensed broker. He owns a brokerage in Michigan. He's the owner of an international real estate investment training company called Flipping Mastery. Jerry is one of the nation's most highly sought-after experts in his field and has mentored thousands of investors on how to make money in real estate. Welcome to the show, Jerry.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Great to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. So I kind of, talked about what you're up to now, but, give us a little backstory, maybe flesh out. How did you go from digging holes in the ground to becoming a self-made millionaire? It sounds like within less than a decade, maybe 5 years. I don't know how long it took you, but
even faster actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was 27 years old, dead end job, minimum wage, underground construction company. So they dug for utilities, like putting in, water and sewer lines. And I would jump down in the hole and dig around, whatever thing they were up close to, like another utility line or whatever. So it was all day long in the hole. It was wet. It was muddy. This is Detroit, Michigan. And I had gotten married early on when I was 21. I started to have a family, had a couple kids, and just was realizing, you know what, I'm not really cutting it as a provider here. And my wife, my couple of small kids, they deserve more than what I'm giving them. I've got to make a change in my life. And so, like many people listening and that follow you, Brian, I thought, well, real estate is that ticket. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I've got to figure out something better. I like real estate. Why don't I try that? And, I bounced around for a little while in real estate part-time, mornings, weekends, nights, kind of like everybody that gets started, trying to learn, trying to figure things out. My issue was I needed money now, not later. So like a long-term, like buy and hold, I thought that was the way out. I started working on that model, but it just wasn't cutting it. Like I needed to pay the bills now. I wanted out of that job so badly. And then that's where I kind of figured out, well, wholesaling real estate is really a fast way to make money. It's transactional, so it's not a long-term passive income way to, build wealth, but it's a way to make a lot of money really quickly, I discovered. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of propelled me and put me on that trajectory that led me to doing multiple deals a month, get into fix and flip, high-end homes, new construction, a lot of other things I do today. But what was amazing was the wholesaling path. I went from like dead broke at 27 to millionaire by 30, really. So it was about 3 years or so when I was able to do that. And it was just amazing life transformation that happened from wholesaling real estate.
Let's talk about this, idea of the fastest path to quitting your job. Because before we hit the record button here, I mentioned to you, I talked to a lot of people who are in kind of a dire situation. They're like, Brian, my boss is killing me. I got to quit like yesterday. And can I do that with rental properties? I'm like, each one will get you $250, $300 a month. So if you could get 10, 15, 20 houses, that can pay most people's bills. but that takes longer
Yeah.
than most people have. So, what would you say to someone that's in that situation, stuck at their dead end job? They just really want that quick relief. What would you advise them to do?
Well, I love that question, and I'm going to be totally real, totally transparent. It may not be what everybody agrees with, but I believe if you're a real estate beginner with no money, then wholesaling without a doubt is the best strategy to start. Because like you alluded to, buy and hold is a long-term play. You better not be spending that money on your living expenses because you got to plan for the rainy day when it goes vacant or a tenant does something to it. You have to reinvest that money into more property so you continue to build. You really have to look at the rental strategy as more of a 5 or 10 year play, not a quit my job, pay my bills strategy.
Mm-hmm.
That strategy, in my opinion, is wholesaling because it truly is a no money strategy if you do it right. Because what you're doing is you're not investing in the properties, you're not fixing them up, you're not putting money in, you're not borrowing money, you're not doing any of that. You're not waiting to get paid till it sells later after it's fixed up, or till it appreciates as a rental property, or the tenants pay it down, or any of those kind of longer term. You're getting a contract on a good deal, assigning the contract to another investor who's going to fix it up or rent it, and you get paid right out up front, a sliver of the pie, right? 5,000, 10,000, even more, 15,000, 20,000 sometimes on a wholesale deal. That I call it now money, right? You make money now. You got to do another deal to make more money, but it allows you to make money very quickly. I have some strategies, and I show people how to get your first deal in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So potentially you could come into the wholesaling business, learn some things and hustle, like there's no way around that, but you could potentially get a deal that makes $5,000 or $10,000 really quickly and do that a couple times a month. And all of a sudden now you can quit that job and get on that path. I tell people, because it's transactional, you really want to be thinking also about long-term. So, improve your lifestyle, take care of your needs, but reinvest into your passive income strategies, maybe like rentals if that's your thing. So, but man, you want to get going in real estate, wholesaling can get you there pretty quick. Here's what I did that I felt at the time was a safe way to do it. I wholesaled part-time while I maintained that job, that paid the bills, until I saved up enough to replace my annual income, which wasn't very much. And that took me a while. It took me like a year of part-time in it. And I eventually, set aside, okay, I've done these handful of deals. I have over here a little nest egg of a year's worth of income that I was making at the job. So I quit the job. What was crazy about that though, Brian, is my first month full-time with all of my focus at it, I did 5 deals and made $52,000 wholesaling in my first month full-time. It was that was double what I made in a year pretty much in 1 month, in 1 month. And, sometimes I think, well, should I have just done that from day one? And it was the path I took. It's a safe path. So if you're a low risk person, if you have a low risk tolerance, that might be a way to do it rather than jumping all into it and quit the job thing.
Got it. And at what point should someone who's, let's say they start wholesaling, they've done a few deals, at what point should they
go all in?
Start to think about flipping houses and actually,
Yeah. But what I did is I did wholesaling for 2 years straight, Brian, without ever touching a rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And then I slowly transitioned into fix and flip, going from 5 to 10,000 a deal. Fix and flip allowed me to go to 25 to 30,000 a deal. Definitely more work because now I'm buying it, fixing it, managing it, reselling it. But I got to a point where I was doing, this is Detroit, I was doing, 50 to 80 of those a year, at 25,000 a pop. So
Wow.
you do the math, I was making a ton of money, but I was working my brains out. I was the bottleneck. I basically replaced my low paying job with a very high paying job. And at first it was great. Like the money was amazing. And it was like, it propelled me, but that started to wear off because money always wears off, right? It wasn't fulfilling anymore. And then that's when I started to really focus on lifestyle as my driving motivator, not income. My whole world changed when I put that at the forefront of what I was doing, was focus on lifestyle first, money second, which
Yeah,
we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, we can come back to the wholesaling and flipping and flesh that out a little more, but that was one of the big questions I had for you. Tell me more about that. Tell me, like, what did that look like, putting lifestyle first? How did that change what you did on a day-to-day basis? How did that change your whole life around, like you said?
Well, my route was interesting because, I was in my local market. I was running around ragged at all these projects I was doing. I had to be there. I was the one making all the big decisions. I didn't have really good leadership or management skills at the time. So I had a lot of balls in the air. I was dropping a lot of balls. And my wife and I had this vision of taking our family. At the time I had 6 kids. Today I have 9 kids. So we have a huge family. Yeah, 9 kids. We just had number 9.
You're truly a superstar. I don't even know how you have time to do this interview.
I know. Well, we homeschooled our kids. And so I said, I've got to make a change. I don't know how to make a change. I'm just going to force myself to make a change. So we loaded up in an RV and we left on a year-long cross-country RV trip. And I just left my market, in the middle of deals and stuff. And it forced me to kind of reevaluate everything I was doing in the business, not because I had the foresight to do it, because I had to do it. And it was amazing, Brian, what I figured out really quickly I didn't need to do that I thought I needed to do by not being there. For me, it took me not being there to figure it out. But I slowly figured out, like, you know what, I'm the problem here most of the time. In fact, other people can do aspects of my business better than I can. Why am I doing this way? And what's crazy is that year in the RV, I made more money in my flipping business than I did any year previously. And it was because I got out of the way. Like that was what did it. And that really was an eye-opener to me. And so now I still do. They call it, at the time they didn't call it anything, but they call it now virtual wholesaling.
Right.
Which is kind of a thing now, right? Which is wholesaling. And I also virtually fix and flip, which is just doing deals in other markets away from where you live, not your local backyard market. And I teach how to do this, and I've got a lot of content on like how to structure it and do it long distance without you being there. But what's amazing about it is you waste so much time doing things you think you need to do in the business that you really don't need to do or shouldn't be doing, because it's not a good use of your time.
Yeah.
And for flipping anyway, rentals, I imagine is the same way. It's got to be the same way. When the rental properties are right in your yard, in your backyard, you naturally gravitate to going out to the properties. And even to this day, when I do a flip in my backyard, I'm so pulled to like go out to the properties and go see them. Next thing you know, I spend all day out at properties. Spending time at properties is not a good use of time. Like It's not. So I try to ask myself every day 1,000 times, or a dozen times a day, is this the best use of my time right now? If I were worth $1,000 an hour, would I be doing this, whatever it is? And usually the answer is no. And if the answer is no, then you need to figure out a way to get somebody else to do that so that you're focusing on high value strategic activities in the business.
If you can pay someone $14 an hour to paint cabinets, but you go over there and paint the cabinets to save the money, you're earning $14 an hour. You're volunteering to work for $14 an hour. And that's the big mindset shift that you have to get more out of your time.
Totally. I can't tell you how many, I look at it and I call it your bandwidth threshold. It's amazing. Some flippers can do 50 deals a year in, a given 40-hour week. And then you take another flipper who does 3 deals a year in the same 40-hour week. Why is one doing 3 and one doing 40 or 50? It's one has a higher bandwidth. They know how to manage the processes better. That's it. That's the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than running to Home Depot and meeting the contractors every day, or picking up the hammer yourself, or running around and looking at properties that you're going to wholesale yourself, I can get people to do that for next to nothing. So why would I do that? And that's really what transitions your onesie twosie flippers into your six-figure, high 6-figure, and 7-figure flippers, is being able to do that transition into business from, solopreneur.
That's awesome. So my backstory is with wholesaling too. We had a big wholesaling business in Nashville, and we were doing like $1.5 million a year or so. We had 8 employees, and we did that we were on that run rate for like 4 years. And I was of the same mindset. We had a person for every position: a lead manager, an acquisition manager, a disposition manager, an inside sales guy, an office manager, a project manager for rehabs we were doing. But I was the CEO of the company. So even though I was making a lot of money, I was still like waking up, and my whole day was like, craft the vision for the company, check everyone's KPIs, have a call with this person, a call with that person, a call with this person, look at the profit and loss statement. So I was still working like very full time. And so the message that I have thus like started to preach to my audience is like, wholesaling and flipping is more of a job, whereas like buy and hold is like more passive, even though it's not all the way passive. It seems a lot more passive. But I want to reflect that to you and see if you agree with me or not. And if you don't, that's fine. And maybe you approach it differently than I did.
So what you just described there is the big team level of wholesaling. So to me, there's the big team level, which is what you just described. You got a team, you got people, employees, and now you got a monster to feed, right? So you better be cranking out deals. You got overhead, and you got to hit a minimum number of deals just to break even. That's high stress, and which I think is what you probably experience, pretty high stress. Then there's the, do everything yourself, where you have no team at all. I believe in the mid-level. I think honestly, you can do 3 deals a month, 2 of them wholesales, 1 of them fix and flip, if they're the right deals, and you can be hitting a 7-figure income. And if you do the math, if you do 1 fix and flip that makes 60 grand a year, 62.5 a year precisely, and you do 2 wholesales a month that make 10 grand each, that's $1 million a year net profit income. And that's 3 deals a month. And you can do that with a pretty small team. Like I believe you can do it with a couple key people, a couple of VAs at $6 an hour, and you're there. Now, is it easy? No, because you got to be hitting those home run deals and everything's got to align, right? I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's very manageable without a high stress overhead model. And I know a lot of guys. I'm in Phoenix, which is the highest flipping market in the U.S. And I got buddies here that are doing 20, 30 wholesales a month, and they're not happy. I mean, like, lifestyle's not good. Their lifestyle's not good because they got this monster to feed. They got this whole office full of people, and they're stressed out every day. That's not what I want either. That's not lifestyle to me. So
that's really interesting. Yeah. So you found this niche within the niche, I guess, of like the sweet spot, a business size. That's interesting, because I've coached people before who say they want to build wholesaling and flipping businesses. And I remember one of my students specifically saying, I don't want to get too big. I want to be just like the right size. And it was literally like 2 or 3 deals a month, what you just said. And one thing that I was a little unsure about, in terms of how to advise him moving forward on, was like, how do you market to make sure you end up with like 3 deals a month, but no more than 3 deals a month?
I've got the answer for that.
Yeah.
Here's the answer to that. You have to target higher end homes for your fix and flips, because your profit is a percentage of the sale price if you follow the formula, right? So that means if I want to make a $62,000 profit on a fix and flip, given a 15% profit margin with all your other numbers in the deal, that means I need to be flipping about a $420,000 house. I ain't going to get there flipping $100,000 houses, right? You're going to make 20 grand on those. So what I do is I target the higher end homes. Those are going to hit my profit margin, but naturally I'm going to get, while I'm looking for that home run fix and flip, I'm going to get triples, doubles, and singles that make 40,000, 30,000, 20,000. Those margins don't meet my threshold for a fix and flip. So then what I do with those is I wholesale those, because now you're out. So you're naturally, while you're looking for your home run deal, you're going to come across the singles, doubles, triples, wholesale a couple of those a month, right? You're not purposefully looking for those, but you're naturally getting them in your offering process, in your lead act, looking and finding and offering. And so I've even taken it another step further where I go up over the $1 million mark on flips. And now I'm hitting 250 to 500,000 on one deal.
Wow.
Like I've got two projects right now. One's a back end number is 1.5. It's a fix and flip. The other one is a new construction 1.8. And, I'm all into both those projects for $1 million. I've got carry costs with funding, and I've got closing costs, but I'll clear a couple $100,000 on one deal. So you can see how you don't need this. You can have a high margin, you can have a low volume, high margin model instead of a low margin, high volume model, which is where a lot of people tend to gravitate. I don't want to be Walmart. You can be Walmart in wholesaling, but you're going to have to do 20 deals a month, and you're going to have a big team and a ton of overhead. And I'm guessing that you're not really going to be very happy because that's stressful.
That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of the conversation we had before we started this about the coaching and the education business, which we're both in, about like how you can get some, some high ticket coaching clients, or you could sell $1,007 ebooks, Sounds like the $1,007 ebooks is like the high stress way of, that's the analogy.
Yeah. I mean, I tell everybody whatever your minimum threshold is on your profit, whether it's a wholesale or a fix and flip, create that model and then don't budge off of it. Like, don't say, well, I could make $3,000 because I can't get the seller to come to my price, so I'm going to do it for the sake of doing it. That is a scarcity mindset. Like, be willing to walk from the low margin deals, and you'll be amazed at how many high margin deals come your way. And you need a whole lot less high margin deals than you do low margin deals. So it's okay if you lose some. If you believe that, if you have an abundant mindset, there's always another deal. Yeah. And so, I focus always on lifestyle first. So my filter is I run everything through a 2-phase filter. First phase is, does this deal make sense for my business? Meaning, is the profit margin good enough for me to take on this deal? If the answer is no, I wholesale it. If I pass that filter, my second filter is, with what I've got going on in my life right now, personal life, should I take on this deal? Is it worth taking on this deal? Like, am I traveling a lot right now? Am I coaching the soccer team? Like, what's going on personally to where if I did do this deal, it's going to jeopardize lifestyle? If that answer is yes, then I don't do the deal and I wholesale it. So wholesaling is my ultimate out on everything, because I'm out now. Like, I don't have to get funding. I don't have to manage the process. I don't have to market and selling. I don't have to wait to get paid. I'm out. So I tend to be very picky about the fix and flips I do. I only need a handful a year to be hitting really high income, wholesale out whatever else comes my way, and there I go. And then, to your effect, reinvest into passive income.
So since we're at this weird spot in the market where it's been going up forever, like, how do you think about what deals you do and don't decide to go into?
Yeah, well, great question. The beauty with flipping, especially wholesaling, is, you're not really going to get stuck if there's a market correction, for one, because, you're in it short term. Fix and flip, maybe, because, you might be ready to sell it 6 months later and the market dips or whatever. But even then, you can watch trends and you can kind of adjust. So if I start to see a market flatten out, then I'll be much more conservative on my back end number, and I'll go into the deal, anticipating, well, it might not sell for as much, 6 months from now. So there's some things you can kind of preempt that a little bit with flipping, where you don't get stuck like you would in a long-term, buy and hold situation maybe. So I kind of look at flipping like, I don't really care what the market's doing. I just have to watch it and be able to adjust accordingly. But as far as like multiple, exits, yeah, I mean, some of my strategies, like my higher end homes, there's no plan B, right? Like, I'm burning the bridge in the harbor. or I'm burning the ships in the harbor because I'm not going to rent out my $1.8 million home. Like I'm selling it or I'm going to die trying, right?
Right.
So there is some more risk there. You definitely don't want to jump into that. It's taken me 15 years to transition into higher end. Like people say, man, you're doing these $1 million luxury flips. You know, how did you get there? Well, slowly is how I got there. I just kind of kept getting a little more comfortable, flexing my risk muscles, you know, and understanding that, because high end's a whole nother model, right? You got to understand that buyer a whole lot different. Because now you're asking, well, should I buy a $10,000 fridge or a $30,000 fridge?
Wow.
Those are your questions, right? So it's just a whole nother animal. But lower end for sure. Like what's great about getting started with kind of typical, you know, first time buyer homes is even with flipping, I could do creative financing. If I can't get my cash number to work, maybe I can take over payments. Maybe I can do a lease option. And knowing those different strategies is huge because now you can look at deals and you have multiple ways of making money on them. But my caution to that is be careful of not getting stretched out into too many different strategies, especially in the beginning, because then you're doing a lot of things not very good instead of one thing really good.
Yeah.
And so like I tell people, listen, if you're in the beginner no money phase, just be hyper focused on wholesaling, get to where you're earning a 6-figure income, and then explore something else if you want. But don't do what I did and you're like scattered in like I chased every shiny object that came along.
Me too. Yeah.
And it was hard because I was like, oh, and I'm over squirrel over here. And it just made it to where I just didn't do anything very well at first.
Yeah. You know, when people will come to me and say, Brian, you know, should I do wholesaling or should I do flipping? What I've tended to tell people, and I'm rethinking it, talking to you, but I've tended to tell people flipping. And one thing to add to that is they'll always tell me my long-term plan is to do buy and hold. I always want to get into that, but they need the money now. And I've thought about it and I'm like, well, flipping and buy and hold are almost the same exact strategy, except one of them ends with you keeping it. One of them ends with you selling it. And of course there's different like decisions, like you rehab it retail versus just a lipstick rent ready. But the whole model is like almost identical. So you could build that out and then just to start to decide flip one, flip two, keep one, flip two, keep one, or whatever. Would you agree with that?
Well, acquisitions is acquisitions, right? I mean, acquisitions is and that's half of the business for rentals and for flipping is getting the contract, right? Getting the deal. So I agree 100% with that, where you have your acquisition strategies in place. If you're in a place where you can, where you could keep a few of them, where you're not so dependent on the income, and you could say, you know what, this one makes sense to keep. So I'm not going to flip this one. This would make a great one, a great neighborhood, great cash flow opportunity. So I'm going to keep this one. You know, that could be part of your arsenal of, well, should I wholesale it? Should I fix and flip it? Or should I keep it? You could totally do that. I kind of regret that a little bit looking back, because when I was flipping in Detroit, you know, I flipped right through the crash, wholesaled and flipped right through the crash. And I mean, Brian, I was flipping nice brick homes in like Oak Park, Michigan, that today are worth $150,000. I was buying those things for $30,000, $40,000, and flipping them for $50,000, you know, $60,000. And I'm like, why didn't I keep some of those? You know, like, why didn't I just keep 1 out of 10 and put renters in it and now own those today? Why didn't I do that? And I mean, I don't know. It was probably for the better. Who knows? But if you're able to look at flipping and have a much longer term perspective than just make money now, then it would be wise where you get a high equity deal in a great area. It's a perfect rental type deal, and say, I'm going to forego making 40 grand flipping this thing. Instead, I'm going to hang on to $400 a month cash flow, because I know in the long play, I'll make up that 40 later, plus hopefully a bunch more. You know, so that for sure, I agree with that strategy.
I want to talk about, you mentioned that the acquisitions part of the business is like 50%, or I think that's what you said. It's a huge chunk of the bit. Like basically I remember I used to say someone like, If I gave you 100 signed contracts for really good deals like today, and do you think you could figure out what to do with them? Most people are like, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of proves the point that like that's usually most people's bottleneck, is they just don't have good deals like landing on their desk, right? So if we just picture that acquisitions part of the business, so the marketing, the sales, like what are some of your top tips to make that part of the business really
Well, first of all, I actually think it's way more than 50% flipping anyway. Because we're in more of a appreciating seller's market, that means it's easy to sell, hard to buy.
right?
Right. The other way around, like in a buyer's market, it's easy to buy, hard to sell. Like in 2008, 9, and 10, I could buy a house any day of the week. There's foreclosures everywhere. It was easy. Now flipping them was hard. Like I couldn't get my buyers financed, and like my rehabs had to be perfect because buyers have a lot to choose from. But so today I tell people, if you're a flipper or a wholesaler, let's take, for example, 90% of your success, 90% of your time, energy, and effort needs to be on acquisitions. Finding a buyer for your deal is the easy part. Like that's because buyers are dying for deals. So don't put any emphasis on finding a buyer right now. Put all your energy into finding a deal. And when you have that good, not any deal, but like a deal, right? A good deal, finding a buyer for it's the easiest thing ever. And I have a couple strategies I teach. It's like I can find a buyer on any deal anywhere in like 5 minutes if you know where to find the buyers, because they're all dying for deals. So, put your energy into and focus on finding. And to go along with that, like I'm a big believer in casting a wide net. I look at like fishing. I use fishing as an analogy. When I take my kids fishing, I don't catch any fish because I'm untangling their knots all the time, right? But if you go fishing and you have one line in the water, maybe you catch a fish. Whereas I just went to Mexico and we went deep sea fishing, and the guy put like, a dozen lines in the water, and we were catching tons of fish. So I tell people, you got to have multiple lead finding sources, on market, off market. The more lines in the water, the more fish you'll catch. And you just got to look at the business that way with acquisitions.
What would you say the top 3 marketing channels are right now?
Well, I actually personally take the opposite approach of everybody else, which is on market. Now I still do off market. So just if listeners aren't aware, on market is listed with real estate agents. Off market is private sellers where there's no agents. That's the definition. So the industry, all of the experts in the wholesaling industry all teach off market strategies.
Right.
Driving for dollars and, buying data and talking to pre-foreclosures and absentee owners and tax delinquents and all those things. There's dozens of, motivated seller lead types, and you can pursue those and they work and they're great. And I do those too. But what's amazing to me is in today's market, nobody teaches and shows people or focuses on market. And motivated sellers list their properties on market like crazy. People just don't think that you can find them. They don't think that you can buy with agents. They don't think that you can wholesale on market. And so it's a huge untapped gold mine right now in the industry.
Wow.
Is on market, so put that on your radar. I actually have a really cool software that finds underpriced on market properties. I give it away for free. If anybody wants it, if you want, I can give a link to just.
Yeah. What's the link for that?
It's called mydatacruncher.com. And if you go there, you put your email in, we'll send you a login to it. And what you do is, what's cool is you set up a campaign, you put your zip code in the software, and it'll generate a list of all of the properties actively for sale right now that are for sale below the average sold price in that zip code. And all it is a list, but it's underpriced properties. So it gives you a great starting point. Now you got to go through those and, work the leads. But it's a really quick way to find motivated sellers on market super fast. Like it takes a second to put a campaign together, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a list of properties. So it's a big time saver that anybody can use if they want.
That's awesome. So you're kind of taking a contrarian approach to marketing and doing what all the other people are not doing.
Right. Exactly. when everyone's doing one thing, do something different, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's Warren Buffett's advice. When people are fearful, be greedy. I've been thinking. Yeah. So you mentioned that like right now it's a it's hard to buy, it's easier to sell. And, I guess once the market corrects again, it's going to be
the opposite.
It's going to be easy to buy, hard to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Prefer one over the other? And another way of asking that is, are you looking forward to the crash if it happens?
Yeah, well, great question. There's one other aspect to the deal side, and it's the money side. So when markets are doing good, money's easy. When the market's bad, money's hard. So because of the money situation, I prefer the market we're in now, just because it's hard to buy, but if you know how to find deals, then you can overcome that one. It's easy to sell. I mean, when I say easy to sell, I mean like put the thing up for sale and you're going to have 10 offers in the first day, right? Like that's what beats that. But what's really amazing is the money, because the money pours into real estate when the markets are good. So like hard money right now to fund fix and flips is the cheapest I've ever seen it in 15 years. Like single digit hard money rates, that's crazy. 9% hard money rates. I mean, that's like when I started and the market was bad, I was paying 18% and 8 points for money because that's all that was available. So I'm not looking forward to expensive money when the market corrects. That part I don't like. But honestly, I really don't care if it's up or down, because if you know how to adjust accordingly, then it doesn't matter. You just have to put your focus in the right areas when the market changes from one to the other. So everyone who gets really scared about the market correcting, it's just because they don't know how to operate in that type of market. Well, learn how to operate in that type of market and keep doing the business. Buy and hold people love the down market because that's when you go on a buying spree, right?
Yep.
Like, dude, that's amazing. The market's down. Great. Let's buy as much as we can. So
yeah, I remember a time driving down the streets in Nashville and the houses were like 30, 40, 50 grand. There was like a for sale sign in everyone's yard. Everyone was scoffing at those prices. Like, who the hell would pay $45,000 for that piece of crap? Now it's worth like 200, like,
yeah.
and I was like, wow. So that's what Warren Buffett means by when people are fearful, be greedy. Everyone was fearful to buy those houses. So I should have been greedily buying them all up.
I remember the big hedge funds like Blackstone and those guys coming into Vegas and Florida and Phoenix during like 2010 and buying everything. And I remember thinking, those morons, like they don't know where the bottom is. They don't know when it's going to turn. What idiots. Now, freaking geniuses, because now what they've done is they've waited the 10 years. Now they're slowly trickling those out to the market on the flips, and they've tripled their money. Yeah. And they've rented them all. They cash flowed them between now and then and now. And they are brilliant. And it's because they knew what they were doing, and they were able to structure. They had the funding to structure to wait, to buy at the right time and wait. And they did it. They were patient. They waited. And now they're geniuses, right? So totally.
Buying on those big dips, not day trading, but like just waiting for that. Yeah. And the cool thing is like, even if like when the market tanks again, if you don't have Blackstone money to buy the whole street up, go learn seller financing or something. Right. Just find a way to get ownership over those properties, and it's just going to treat you well.
Real estate is more a mindset than anything else. When you have the right mindset, it's all about now, how do I structure deals, and what different plays do I have, and where are the opportunities? And I like to look at myself more as an investor than a wholesaler or flipper or builder or whatever, which means you look for the opportunities. Where are the opportunities in the market? Mm-hmm. That's what I am. I'm a deal maker. I'm a business person. I'm an entrepreneur, not a landlord or this or that. Because if you're the smartest investors I've ever met, Brian, that make the most money are able to adapt quickly with the markets. Those are the ones that continually make money. The people who become obsolete are the ones who say, well, I'm just this, and now my model doesn't work, so I guess I'm going to go back to my job. Yeah. Well, and they don't adapt. Like, you have to adapt.
There was a guy on, you ever heard the Wheelbarrow Profits podcast? It's a multifamily podcast. Gino Barbero. It's a good podcast, but he had a guy on there that was a super successful and long investor, kind of an older guy. And he was giving his advice. And one thing he said that stuck with me is he said, most people's net worth actually follows the market ups and downs. So, you know, like people do really well and then they lose it all when the market crashes. Like 2008 was a perfect example. I personally know people that lost like millions in the stock market, you know, and then now guess what? Their net worth has gone up along with the economy. And then when the economy, their net worth's going to go down. And he was like, people don't, there's not enough risk analysis or, you know, asking what am I going to do if and when this happens and preparing so that your net worth really kind of continues on more of an upward trajectory, regardless of what the market does.
Yeah. I mean, Zig Ziglar used to say, you know, when the market's bad, a bunch of folks are getting rich. And when the market's good, a bunch of folks are going broke. It's got nothing to do with the market. It's got to do with you, you know, right? And so it's all about you. It's not about the market. So that's, I mean, I totally agree with that.
Jerry, thanks a lot for taking the time to be on today. This has been a really valuable interview and I'm sure everyone's getting a lot out of it. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you do?
Well, definitely check out if you're interested in flipping, all things flipping, wholesaling, fix and flip, check out my YouTube channel. It's called Flipping Mastery TV. We put a lot of energy into that content. We put out videos every single week. And I mean, we've got now like, I think almost 400 videos on there. So great place to just go and learn about everything and anything flipping, you know, so I really would encourage people to go there, right? YouTube University. And if someone wants to really get into the flipping, start with wholesaling. Like I talked about on the show, that's a great place to go. I've got a software that works really well for beginners, intermediate, and even advanced flippers. And it's great because it's got deal finding tools. It's got your analyzers. It's got everything you need, you know, to automate and streamline and organize and get going in the business. It's called FLIPSTER. It's kind of my baby. I have a full-time tech team that just works on it nonstop, making it better. And, you know, we've been working on it for 5 years now. So it's really amazing. It's a subscription model, month to month. You can cancel anytime, but it's really great for flippers. And you can check that out if you just go to getflipster.com and you can, you know, see a demo of it and learn about it a little bit more. So those are a couple things that I would check out for anybody that really wants to learn more and check out flipping and wholesaling.
Awesome, man. I discovered you on Instagram. I like the fact that you post preview versions of your YouTube videos. That kind of always reminds me because I'm on Instagram anyways. Yeah. So what's your Instagram handle too, in case someone wants to follow?
Flipping Mastery. Yeah.
Flipping Mastery.
Yep. You go to Flipping Mastery and that's a great place to connect to. I try really hard to answer questions on Instagram or on YouTube. So those two places are great to, if you're like watch a video and you're like, wait, I got a question about that. Normally the way I answer questions is I say, that's a great question. Watch this video. Cause I did a whole video on that question, but it's all good. Yep. It's fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on and let's definitely do it again sometime.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks everybody.
All right. Thank you guys for listening and we'll see you next time. Peace.